So, guys, I'm going to do what I do oftentimes when I forget to hit the record button and restate a couple things that I mentioned before. But the common denominator of success is a life changer, something that I was exposed to back in one as a 19-year-old freshman at UNC Wilmington, and it definitely changed my life. This was written back in 1940. So pardon the references where it talks about leading the efforts of men. Please insert men and women in that part right here. But this gentleman actually had 30 years of continuous experience with the Prudential Insurance Company of America, both as an agent in the field and as a promoter of an instructor of sales development. And he's a pretty sharp dude. So I give you guys The Common Denominator of Success by Mr. Albert E.N. Gray. Several years ago, I was brought face to face with a very disturbing realization that I was trying to supervise and direct the efforts of a large number of men who were trying to achieve success without knowing myself what the secret of success really was. And that naturally brought me face to face with the further realization that regardless of what other knowledge I might have brought to my job, I was definitely lacking in the most important knowledge of all. Of course, like most of us, I'd been brought up with the popular belief that the secret of success is hard work. But I'd seen so many men work hard without succeeding, and so many men succeed without working hard, that I've become convinced that hard work was not the real secret, even though in most cases it might be one of the requirements. And so I set out on a voyage of discovery, which carried me through biographies and autobiographies and all sorts of dissertations on success and the lives of successful men, until finally I reached a point at which I realized that the secret I was trying to discover lay not only in what men did, but also in what made them do it. I further realized that the secret for which I was searching must not only apply to every definition of success, but since it must apply to everyone to whom it was offered, it must also apply to everyone who's ever been successful. In short, I was looking for the common denominator of success. And because that's what I was looking for, it's exactly what I found. But this common denominator of success is so big, so powerful, and so vitally important. I'm not going to make a speech about it. I'm just going to lay it on the line in words of one syllable, so simple that everyone can understand them. The common denominator of success, the secret of success of every man or woman who's ever been successful, lies in the fact that he formed the habit of doing the things that failures don't like to do. It's just as true as it sounds and as simple as it seems. You can hold it up to the light, you can put it to the acid test, you can kick around until it's worn out. But when you're all through with it, it will still be the common denominator of success, whether you like it or not. It will still explain why men have come into this business of ours with every apparent qualification for success and given us our most disappointing failures, while others have come in and achieved outstanding success in spite of many obvious and discouraging handicaps. And since it will also explain your future, it'd be a mighty good idea for you to use it in determining what sort of future you're going to have. In other words, let's take this big, all-embracing secret and boil it down to fit the individual you. If the secret of success in forming the habit of doing the things that failures don't like to do, let's start by boiling the process down by determining what are the things that failures don't like to do. The things that failures don't like to do are the very things that you and I and other human beings, including successful men, naturally don't like to do. In other words, we've got to realize right from the start that success is something which is achieved by the minority of men and is therefore unnatural and not to be achieved by following our natural likes and dislikes, nor by being guided by our natural preferences and prejudices. The things that failures don't like to do in general are too obvious for us to discuss them here. And so since our success is to be achieved in the sale of supplemental insurance, let us move it on to a discussion of the thing that we as supplemental insurance people don't like to do. Here too, the things we don't like to do are too many to permit specific discussion, but I think they can all be disposed of by saying that they all emanate from one basic dislike particular to our type of selling. We don't like to call on people who don't want to see us and talk to them about something they don't want to talk about. Any reluctance to follow a definite prospecting program, to use prepared sales talks, to organize time, and to organize effort are all caused by this one basic dislike. Perhaps you've wondered what is behind this particular lack of welcome on the part of our prospective buyers? Isn't it due to the fact that our prospects are human too? And isn't it true that the average human being is not big enough to buy life insurance or cancer insurance on his own accord, and is therefore prone to escape our efforts to make him bigger or persuade him to do something he doesn't want to do by striking at the most important weakness we possess, namely our desire to be appreciated? Perhaps you've been discouraged by a feeling that you were born subject to certain dislikes particular to you or peculiar to you, with which the successful men in our business are not afflicted. Perhaps you've wondered why it's that our biggest producers seem like that they like to do the things that you don't like to do. Guess what? They don't. And I think that's the most encouraging statement I've ever offered to a group of supplemental insurance salespeople. But if they don't like to do those things, then why do they do them? Because by doing the things they don't like to do, they can accomplish the things they want to accomplish. Successful people are influenced by the desire for pleasing results. Failures are influenced by the desire for pleasing methods, okay, and are inclined to be satisfied with such results as can be obtained by doing things that they like to do. Why are successful men able to do things they don't like to do while failures are not? Because successful men have a purpose strong enough to make them form the habit of doing things they don't like to do in order to accomplish the purpose they want to accomplish. That's underline worthy right there. Sometimes even our best producers get into a slump. When a person goes into a slump, it simply means that he's reached a point at which, for the time being, the things he doesn't like to do have become more important than his reasons for doing them. And may I pause to suggest to you, managers and general agents and leaders, that when one of your good producers goes into a slump, the less you talk about his production and the more you talk about his purpose, the sooner you'll pull him out of that slump. Many men with whom I've discussed this common denominator have said at this point, but I have a family to support and I have a living. I have to have a living for my family and myself. Isn't that enough of a purpose? No, it isn't. It isn't a sufficiently strong enough purpose to make you form the habit of doing the things you don't like to do, for the simple reasons that it's easier to adjust ourselves to the hardships of a poor living than it is to adjust ourselves to the hardships of making a better one. If you doubt me, just think of all the things you're willing to go without in order to avoid doing the things that you don't like to do. All of which seems to prove that the strength which holds you to your purpose is not your own strength, but the strength of the purpose itself. Now let's see why habits belong so importantly in this common denominator of success. Men are creatures of habit just as machines are creatures of momentum. For habits, nothing more or less than momentum translated from the concrete into the abstract. Can you picture the problem that would face our mechanical engineers if there were no such thing as momentum? Speed would be impossible, because the highest speed at which any vehicle could be moved would be the first speed at which it broke away from a standstill. Elevators could not be made to rise, airplanes could not be made to fly, and the entire world of mechanics would find itself in a total state of helplessness. Then who are you and I to think that we can do with our own human nature what the finest engineers in the world couldn't do with the finest machinery that was ever built? Every single qualification for success is acquired through habit. Men form habits, and habits form futures. If you do not deliberately form good habits, then you will form bad ones. You're the kind of man you are because you form the habits of being that kind of man. And the only way you can change it is through habit. The success habits in supplemental insurance selling are divided into four main groups: prospecting habits, calling habits, selling habits, and working habits. Let's discuss these habit groups in their order. Any successful supplemental insurance agent will tell you that it's easier to sell life insurance or supplemental insurance to people who don't want it than it is to find people who do want it. I'll tell you right now, and again, guys, it's easier to sell insurance to people who don't want it than it is to find people who want it. But if you've not deliberately formed the habit of prospecting for needs, regardless of wants, then unconsciously you form the habit of limiting your prospecting to people who want cancer insurance. And therein lies the only real reason for lack of prospects. As to calling habits, unless you've deliberately formed the habit of calling on people who are able to buy but unwilling to listen, then unconsciously you form the habit of calling on people who are willing to listen but unable to buy. Guys, ever notice that people with no money will talk to you all day long? As to selling habits, unless you've deliberately formed the habit of calling on prospects determined to make them see their reasons for buying cancer insurance, then unconsciously you form the habit of calling on prospects in the state of mind of which you're willing to let them make you see their reasons for not buying it. As to working habits, if you take care of the other three groups, the working habits will generally take care of themselves, because under working habits are included study and preparation, organizing of time and efforts, records, analysis, etc. Certainly you're not going to take the trouble to learn interest-arousing approaches and sales talks unless you're going to use them. You're not going to plan your day's work when you know in your heart that you're not going to carry out your plans. And you're certainly not going to keep an honest record of things that you haven't done or of results that you haven't achieved. So let's not worry so much about the fourth group of success habits, because if you're taking care of the first three, most of the working habits will take care of themselves, and you'll be able to afford a secretary to take care of the rest of them for you. But before you decide to adopt these success habits, let me warn you of the importance of habit to your decision. I've attended many sales meetings and sales congresses during the past 10 years, and have often wondered why, in spite of the fact that there's so much good in them, so many men seem to get so little lasting good out of them. Perhaps you've attended sales meetings in the past and have left determined to do the things that would make you successful or more successful, only to find your decision or determination waning at just the time when it should be put into practice or effect. Here's the answer. Any resolution or decision that you make is simply a promise to yourself, which isn't worth a tinker's damn unless you form the habit of making it and keeping it. And you won't form the habit of making it and keeping it unless right from the start you link it with a definite purpose that can be accomplished by keeping it. In other words, any resolution or decision you make today has to be made again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, and the next, and so on. It not only has to be made each day, but it has to be kept each day. For if you miss one day in the making or keeping of it, you got to go back and begin all over again. Kind of reminds me of a 75-day thing I just did recently. But if you continue the process of making it each morning and keeping it each day, you'll finally wake up some morning a different man in a different world. And you'll wonder what's happened to you in the world that you used to live in. Here's what happened. Your resolution or decision has become a habit, and you don't have to make it on this particular morning. And the reason for you seeming like a different man living in a different world lies in the fact that for the first time in your life, you have become master of yourself and master of your likes and dislikes by surrendering to your purpose in life. That's why behind every success, there must be a purpose. And that's what makes purpose so important to your future. For in the last analysis, your future is not going to depend on economic conditions or outside influences or circumstances over which you have no control. Your future is going to depend on your purpose in life. So let's talk about purpose. First of all, your purpose must be practical and not visionary. Some time ago, I talked to a man who thought he had a purpose, which was more important to him than income. He was interested in the sufferings of his fellow man. He wanted to be placed in a position to alleviate that suffering. But when we analyzed his real feeling, we discovered, and he admitted it, that what he really wanted was a really nice job dispensing charity with other people's money and being well paid for it. That sounds awesome, along with the appreciation and feeling of importance that would naturally go with such a job. But in making your purpose practical, be careful not to make it logical. Make it a purpose of sentimental or emotional type. Remember, needs are logical, while wants and desires are sentimental and emotional. Your needs will only push you so far, but when your needs are satisfied, they'll stop pushing you. If, however, your purpose is in terms of wants and desires, then your wants and desires will keep pushing you long after your needs are satisfied and until your wants and desires are fulfilled. Recently, I was talking with a young man who'd long ago discovered the common denominator of success without identifying his discovery. He had a definite purpose in life. It was definitely a sentimental or emotional purpose. He wanted his boy to go through college without having to work his way through as he had done. He wanted to avoid for his little girl the hardships with his own sister had to face in her childhood. And he wanted his wife and the mother of his children to enjoy the luxuries and comforts and even necessities which had been denied his own mother. And he was willing to form the habit of doing things he didn't like to do in order to accomplish that person. Not to discourage him, but rather to encourage me. I said to him, aren't you going a little too far with this thing? There's no logical reason why your son shouldn't be willing to work his way through college, just as his father did. Of course, he'll miss out on some things that you missed out on your college life, and he'll probably have heartaches and disappointments, but if he's any good, he'll come through in the end just as you did. And there's no logical reason why you should slave in order that your daughter may have things that your own sister wasn't able to have, or in order for your wife to enjoy comforts and luxuries that she wasn't used to before she married you. He looked at me with a rather pitying look and said, Mr. Gray, there's no inspiration in logic. There's no courage in logic. There's not even happiness in logic. There's only satisfaction. The only place logic has in my life is in the realization that the more I'm willing to do for my wife and children, the more I shall be able to do for myself. I imagine after hearing that story, you won't have to be told how to find your purpose or how to identify it or how to surrender to it. If it's a big purpose, you'll be big in its accomplishment. If it's an unselfish purpose, you'll be unselfish in accomplishing it. And if it's an honest purpose, you'll be honest and honorable in the accomplishment of it. But as long as you live, don't ever forget that while you may succeed beyond your fondest hopes and your greatest expectations, you'll never succeed beyond the purpose for which you're willing to surrender. Furthermore, your surrender will not be complete until you form the habit of doing the things that failures don't like to do. So guys, that is the full common denominator of success from start to finish. There was probably 20 different places where I would normally like to pause and throw in comments, but I resisted that urge and just pretty much read it from start to finish. But I'd love to hear a couple comments from the peanut gallery before we wrap up and hear what's something that you're taking away from that you can put in action today and every day.
I think sometimes, Van, like when our team's down, we do talk to them about like, hey, you gotta, get out here, protect some families, to, pay this, pay that. But just really, hey, reminding them of their purpose and how each person they come in contact with, they could be changing their lives. Just remind them more of that purpose and the part of, hey, you need to be out to sell stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brandy.
Van, hi, Brandy. The part that I heard that really rang true to me, because I've been dealing with it a lot, was, people without any money and without the means to buy policies are going to talk to you all day long. And that, it's true. I had someone yesterday I talked to for about almost an hour and a half, and, it seemed like a good prospect, and then get to the end. And the lowest price for a policy was about $12. And she told me she couldn't afford it. So it's tough sometimes pushing yourself, because the people who have the means to buy it are generally the hardest ones, I think, to talk to. And I think that comes down to the sales talk and doing that properly. And, it's a really good pamphlet. I read it, but I liked your reading of it, because you kind of emphasized some parts that I didn't really hear before. So it was great. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick. Guys, as I was reading that, something that hopped out at me that I don't think has ever hopped out before, it talked about how so many of us have gone he mentioned going to rallies and going to sales conferences and getting so many ideas and getting so fired up. It made me harken back to going to a Tony Robbins seminar back in the late 90s. And you get so fired up at these things, and everyone's fired up, and it's so easy to get fired up. And then you leave that conference and you get back out in the field and there's nobody cheering anymore. There's nobody chanting. Where's Tony? And all of a sudden you're out there on your own and it's, ooh, I'm not as fired up anymore, right? Guys, motivation and is as they say, it's temporary. Somebody told me that motivation's crap, but it's definitely temporary, which is why it's just like so is bathing, which is why it's recommended to do both daily, right? Miller time like that one.
I like that one too.
Yeah.
It's true. It's every morning. I mean, you have a bad day. Like it was, it wasn't a great day yesterday. And this morning, man, I had to get myself fired up because, it's tough when you're having those bad days to get going in the morning, but it's like bathing. That's absolutely right. I like that a lot.
I mean, bathing wears off, yet you do it every morning, right? Or night, hopefully. If not, that might be the key to your success going forward, guys. So guys, thanks for hopping on today. I appreciate it. This was impromptu. You didn't have to be here, but you were here. It's hump day. Guys, we're all off the field tomorrow. Let's make sure that we're not mentally off the field today. Let's focus on today. Let's make right now it's 8:30. From now until 10 o'clock, one demonstration, one family, 100% focus. From 10 to 11:30, from 11:30 to 1 to 2:30, 2:30 to 4 to 5:30. Let's just go see one person every 90 minutes. Be fully present for them today. And guys, you do that, you're going to go into tomorrow fully present and excited and proud of your effort today. So guys, we've been so very blessed. Let's go be a blessing for somebody else right now today. Thanks, guys. I can't wait to see a whole bunch of you tomorrow. Those of you in Schneider Agency, have a great agency day. And we'll see you back here Friday morning. Rock and roll.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, guys.